Hi, good morning. This is Spartan. Spartan's podcast. I'm sorry. I'm still switching over from Spanish last night. Spoke a lot of Spanish, so like the words are placed
That's
differently.
fine. You can speak in Spanish and we'll just
we'll
respond in English.
Okay. So today's topics are why we exercise.
Mm-hmm.
There's one more.
We're going to talk about, because we brought up the idea of feeling like a burden in our first or second one. And we're going to revisit that a little bit.
So starting it off with, do we want to start off with like feeling like a burden? So that way it doesn't.
Sure, let's start off real deep.
I would say that feeling like a burden often comes off like it varies from person to person, but for me I felt like a burden because I require a lot of time and attention.
From who?
Everyone.
So, okay, let me pose a situation.
Yes.
So, when you text with your friends, do you text a lot and they don't text that much back?
Oh no, I text and like, hey, they say hi, I call. And like, I'll put it because like I don't like waiting for a response.
Here's what I kind of mean by that. If somebody says like how are you to me, I might not initially like really go into how I actually am, because do they really want to know how I actually am? Or are they just asking me how are you as a formality, or is it like, do you actually want to have a conversation right now?
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like a burden in that moment if I share.
I think a lot of that is social cues and also your level of familiarity with that person. Because like if you're super close with someone and they ask you that, then I think the context comes into play. Like as if we're walking through the hallway, is there really time for me to go through like my entire series of events of today and why I'm depressed or what have you? So yeah, I mean I think it depends.
So what do you mean when you say you require a lot of attention and time? Is that like
like being serious, like whenever I have to, like when I'm starting something new and don't know what's going on, so say like exercise, like I would be at your office like every 30 minutes. I was like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Is this the right move? Should I do this? Should I do this? Should I do this? This is like a long series of like redundant questions that like were already answered, but just like I need that confirmation of like I'm doing the right thing.
So in that situation though, so you're saying you need a lot of time and attention when your self-efficacy for a specific task is low.
Yes.
And your skill level is low.
Yes.
That's, I think, true for everybody.
Yeah. But like it's like excessive though, like it.
Well, I think that's something that people kind of write themselves off for, is because my need is excessive, but you're comparing that to what? Like the people that never ask you for something? Like, yeah, compared to the ideal person that never needs anything, yeah, of course it's high. Or of course it's a lot. But I think everyone is, to some degree, they impart burden, if you want to say that, to every situation they're in. So I think you can't look at it as like, oh, I'm putting too much burden. It's like, this is what I need, so it's not a burden. Like that I need that. So you can't look at it as a burden because everyone needs that in some capacity. So
yeah. Well, what you said reminded me of a situational leadership thing I went to, and basically there's a spectrum and you have to change your leadership style for these different situations, and it can be applied to like interpersonal relationships or work relationships. So if your self-confidence and your skill for a specific task is low, then me as your friend or your boss, I'm going to need to give you a lot of feedback, a lot of direction in how to handle that situation or do that task. But if you have a high confidence level and a high skill level for a specific thing, then I can be like, hey, Andres, I need you. Can you do this thing for me? And you got it. Like, you don't need any more direction from me. And I think that is important to recognize because we all have high confidence for certain tasks and completely low confidence for other tasks. And if the people that you're surrounding yourself with are truly in your corner and truly care about you, then they will give you that time and attention that you need for those tasks or for those areas of your life that you don't feel as confident in. And it's not a burden because they are your friend and they want to help you.
I agree. I think that's the important bit is that if you have someone that you would consider a friend, then it seems to me you shouldn't think of it as burdening them, because that's like what friends do. It's like a reciprocal relationship in that I do something for you, you do something for me. Not that it's a transitory, like a transaction.
Yeah, you're not keeping score.
Yeah, it's just like we're friends. We have a common vibe, if you want to put it that way. We get along for whatever reason. So because of that, we're willing to help each other. So it shouldn't be like I did this for him, he has to do this for me type thing. So, and if you don't feel like you can do that with a person, then I would not define them as a friend. I would define them as a person, as an acquaintance, or someone I can talk to about things. But if I don't feel like I can ask them for something that I really truly need, then I wouldn't consider that a friend. So, I mean, that it could be to anyone. It could be an issue of how you're defining it. Like if you don't feel like anyone you can talk to will accommodate your burdenness, then they aren't your friends. That's what I would say.
Yeah. But I feel like also you need to recognize your own, because like I was saying, even if I do consider them my friend, I still won't share because I'm just not a sharer, even though I probably should, because that's part of having a friendship. Is because otherwise they're never going to know what's going on in my life.
And then they can't help and you fester and et cetera, et cetera. I think that's the real issue. And I wrote a thing. I don't want to go reading it verbatim because it's going to sound like a prose, but essentially this in a stream of thought, I came to the idea that I think in general as a society we are almost indoctrinated into the idea that we don't need anyone, because if you want food, you can buy it online and get it shipped to you, or you get it delivered to you. If you need anything, same story.
Right.
You can look it up, like, oh, I'm sick, what do I need to do? And then you buy the products. You don't have to interact with anyone. So then when you find yourself in that situation where you have to talk to someone, you can't Google it, you can't Amazon the cure, then that's when I feel that guilt or that shame of, well, these people have never asked me for anything. Like, why can't I be as strong or as independent as them? And I think that's really the crux of the issue, is that person is probably experiencing the same thing as you, and they feel the exact same way, and that I can't talk to them because I can't initiate the burden on our relationship, when it shouldn't be like that, because it's not a scorekeeping thing. And then another thought that I had attached to that is that people a lot of the times think of, if I ask for help, then I'm weak, so therefore I'm not going to ask for help. But by that logic, you will do anything but ask for help. So if you do the thing you don't want to do, then that's not weak. That's strong. Like that is the opposite of weakness. So I think that's really the key there, is that, and that's always the first thing you jump to intuitively, is like, I need help. Like, I need to ask someone or tell someone. But then you're immediately like, no, can't do that because that's weak. But it's not. So that's more or less what that was saying. So everyone experiences it. It's being a human. Everyone thinks they're a burden on everyone.
Yeah, that's like one of the things I learned through one of the TED Talks about a doctor being he was a medical doctor and was like, people are so scared to say I don't know, and they will like construct some like fictional like founded not theory but like idea of an explanation, and they're like, that's dangerous.
You mean doctors will do that?
Like no, like medical doctors. This medical doctor was talking about like some patients that are nervous to like ask him about certain symptoms that they have.
Yeah.
And then they'll end up going to like shamans and crystals and like etc. And they're like,
yeah, people go to the doctor because they like have some issue, but then the doctor's like, anything going on? They're like, no, I'm good, because they don't want.
Yeah. That's something. To that point, that's something my aunt. She's a PT. She's been a practicing PT for 20 years, and that's something that she really instilled in me when I went and did my observation hours with her. Is that she like explained to the patient something, and they asked her a question she didn't know, and she was just straight up with them, like, I don't know. Like, you go somewhere else to find that. And then afterwards, she like talked to me about that, and she's like, yeah, like if I don't know, it's not my job to know. I have to know how to fix their body, the therapies, all this. That's what I need to know. If they have GI distress, that's not my forte. I can give them a suggestion from my anecdotal experience, but it's fine. Especially, it's even good to recognize when you don't know something.
Yeah.
Because then you're not putting misinformation out there. You're not misleading someone, even if unintentionally. So, yeah, I think that also could be construed as a strength as opposed to a weakness, saying you don't know.
I think what I'm kind of getting at with what I said about myself not really sharing, and also with these people trying to make stuff up or not being truthful with their doctor, is that by sharing that aspect of you, whatever it is, not only might you feel like a burden, but you also feel vulnerable because sometimes you don't know how that other person's going to take it, whether that is a doctor or if it is a friend, because you might be afraid of judgment, and that doesn't feel good. And sometimes it definitely happens when you do those things. So I think that can also be a factor that discourages people from asking for help, or not even asking for help, but just like sharing a part of their life of whatever they're dealing with, because sometimes you just want the friend to say like, oh, that sucks, like commiserate with you for a second. And I think that has an important aspect to do with it, and I think it ties into the fact that generally speaking we value independence and not having to ask for help, because you don't want to be judged.
And I think that harkens back to what I would say is the problem, is that if you feel like the person you're talking to is going to judge you, or they're going to feel you're a burden, then that's not your friend. I think the definition of friend has been confounded by social media and the like, because like, oh, I have like 1,500 friends on Facebook. Like, how many of those people can you actually go and talk to and get any sort of meaningful interaction with? It's like probably a percentage of a percentage. So I think that's part of it, is that if you feel they're going to judge you, not a friend. If you feel like you can't tell them something that's weighing on you, not a friend. So, yeah. That's really what we're talking about here. Do you have real friends?
On like a relevant tangent, like for the introverts, like how do they make real friends? Because like when I started off in this life, I was an introvert. In this life,
it was 20-some years ago.
My prior life, I was Elon Musk, not Elon Musk. Tesla, Nicholas Tesla.
Okay.
So when I started off, like, it was really hard for me to like find people to talk to, because
like as a child
/ up to high school. So like part of it was on my part, because like I wasn't used to a southern accent. I had a really cruel English teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we said something wrong or wrote something wrong, she would make us go on the chalk blackboard and like write it out 100 times, like up and down,
Mm-hmm.
without a single error in punctuation or spelling, and it had to be legible.
Yeah.
And this was second grade.
I had a bad second grade teacher as well.
Yeah.
And so when I came up here, I was like, I had perfect pronunciation, enunciation, grammar,
Mhm.
everything was good.
Mhm.
And I was like, hello, good morning, how are you today? And they were like, oh, how are y'all doing today? And I was like, not making fun, that's how he sounded to me. And I was like,
Who talks like that?
that was my teacher. And I was like, ma'am, what did you say? And then she was like, oh, you don't speak English, like you probably speak Spanish. I was like,
As I speak English to you.
yeah, as I speak English to you. I was like, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So like that started off
Mhm.
wrong. I didn't like to socialize really well. And then like, so I grew up like super isolated. But then when I reached college, it was like
Yeah.
easier because like I found more Hispanic people,
Yeah.
more people without Southern accents, or I could learn how to
Mhm.
assimilate the Southern.
So where did
accent.
you move from?
Florida.
That's why. Yeah. Okay. No offense to Floridians, but maybe slight offense.
Slide.
So
Yeah.
I am an introvert. I would definitely consider myself that. If we're talking about like the trait scale of extroversion, I would be very low on that. If we're talking about the big 5 personality traits, extroversion is one of them. I would be low on it. I'm assuming you would also proclaim to be low on it.
Yeah.
I think you would too, to a degree, maybe.
Yeah.
So that is something you can't change at all. That's just how you are. But, and this was something I saw on Facebook and thought it was pretty funny, is that introverts are adopted by extroverts. So like that's funny to me because it happened to me in that I was very alone when I got here. Like didn't know anyone at all. I knew like one person, but like very small group of people. And then I got out there in the sense of I went to Sandy, athletic trainer. I was like, hey, can I like help? He was like, okay. So I was just in the training room and like, just like filling up water and doing ice and whatever. And this one girl on the track team, her name's Ashton. She's really cool. She just would always come in there because I think she was hurt or something. I don't know. And so we became friends off of that. And then she started inviting me to things, and it went from there. So it's the point of that story is that even if you are introverted, you have to get out there in some capacity. Because if you don't get out there, you're never going to meet anyone. You're never going to interact with anyone. Even if it sucks, even if you don't want to do it, that's typically the things you don't want to do are the things you probably should be doing, right?
Not always, but
Not always,
Yeah.
but in certain contexts, like schoolwork, like, wow, I really don't want to study for this test. Well,
okay. Now we're getting back to suffering.
so it's you have to put in the effort to a degree, but being an introvert, you have the advantage of you don't have to put in as much effort, so to speak, because you really only need a couple people. Because introverts, they are stimulus modifiers or amplifiers, so you only need a small amount of stimulus to be satisfied. So you have that advantage. We have that advantage of we only need a very small group of people to feel okay with that. And if you're an extrovert, that solves itself. Like that's a non-issue. So yeah.
I think that it's very interesting what you said because I was actually listening to another podcast of a psychiatrist. It's called The Savvy Psychologist or something like that. And she talked about shout out. Yeah. She talked about how there was a study. So this is like me talking about somebody who talked about a study. So go try and find the actual study. But she talked about how introverts that acted extroverted were happier than introverts that just secluded themselves, basically isolated themselves. So it's kind of like even if it feels uncomfortable to put yourself out there and go be social, ultimately you're probably going to feel happier after that interaction. Again, not always, because you kind of have to know yourself. What's your limit? Where, at what point do you need to like go be by yourself and recharge? Yeah, and sometimes that's what it is. Instead of saying like, no, I'm not going to go to your party, go, stay, drive yourself so that you can leave whenever you want to, and then make your appearance and go home when you feel like it.
Yeah. I think that's the true sign of an introvert. If you're all going to a place, the person's like, yeah, I'll drive myself. That's an introvert.
Yeah. I don't want to be trapped.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say like, could we like share some places that we have found to be like really inviting to find friends that are strangers?
I think my situation is a little aberrant in that the training room, not everyone can just like go chill and in the training room. That was just like that just happened to me. Another place that I have felt very welcomed is the weight room.
Yeah.
Is that, that's like, that is the one place in this school that I'm like, I want to come here. It's not like I'm obligated to come here because I have a class. It's like, if I'm not doing anything and I want to do something, I'll come here. Like, that's just how I feel about it. But that's different for different people. It has to be in line with what you'd be willing to do. So like, if you want to just like chill and like eat or something, then the library, they have the new cafe or whatever. Like that's a cool place. You can probably meet people there. I think the easiest place to at least encounter a lot of people is parties. As it's not a great place to actually interact with people because it's just not. But if you want to be in the presence of a lot of people, then you should find a person that is in the party scene, is what I would recommend. And that's not hard to do, believe me. So yeah, but short of that, I don't know. I get a lot of my interaction personally from the gym and from teaching my classes, so like that's as much as I need, really. So.
Two things for me. One of my best friends, Tiffin, we met because he kind of did what Dallas did in the training room. He just like started hanging out in my office in grad school. He just sat there, and eventually we talked, and now we're best friends years later. So, and he's also extremely introverted. So if you want to meet other introverts, just go be physically near them.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah. Eventually, one of you will probably say something.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think a lot of times when it comes to meeting people in the weight room, people are very, again, afraid of being judged, afraid of being vulnerable. But I think if you are newer to the weight room, you definitely still have that opportunity to make friends and find a community there, even if you're not a gym bro. Because generally speaking, people are very nice and very happy to talk about, their goals. People love to talk about themselves. So asking about how they got started and everything, they'll be happy to share that with you. And even if you are more advanced, then you can find a gym buddy to work out with. If you are in a place like the weight room or like the library, you already have something to talk about because you're working towards some goal in either of those places. So you can just talk about that.
Yeah.
Rather than having how's the weather? And I don't like small talk. So if I can talk about what I'm passionate about, then I'll be more likely to build an actual relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, how about you? What are some places?
For me, it would vary between bookstores, the gymnasium I used to frequent and I would like run into other students that I know, and then just naturally joining different organizations of like different niches. So like my freshman year, I was in student government, I was in the jiu-jitsu club, I was in the chemistry club, I was in the science club, I was in the health professionals club, I was in the, I already mentioned the Hispanic Awareness Association, and then there's one more thing.
A lot.
I just joined everything. I was just like
having like structured
yeah.
places to make friends is good.
Yeah. So it was like you like what's a different word for mandatory?
It is kind of mandatory.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. But
Yeah, like you are obligated to speak to me, so that the society can continue. Like, so I like to put myself in that, but it goes like two ways.
Yeah,
They're
but
obligated to talk
that
to
can
me.
be uncomfortable if you're an introvert.
Yeah.
But at least you're kind of forcing yourself.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So like you have to interact,
Yeah.
and so or else like.
Or nothing's happening.
There's nothing happened. So like pushing myself to in those situations where I had to speak or I had to connect.
Yeah.
Like that was a good jump start. And now bookstores and gymnasiums / parks. Love going to parks.
Mm-hmm.
Went to Greenville, found a bunch of photographers. I'm still too nervous to go up to a stranger and be like, yo, what kind of camera is that? Can
Yeah.
you teach me? But like
I'm very afraid to go up to strangers too, but if they have a dog, well, here's an example of me putting myself out there and then sort of being judged because this person had a beautiful, it was like a Great Pyrenees white, fuzzy, so cute. I said, oh, you have a beautiful dog. They were like, thanks. What's wrong with you?
Just a
Let
dog.
me pet your dog.
Yeah, weirdo.
If people say anything like that to Zeb, I'm like, oh, you can pet him because sometimes people
Mhm.
are afraid. I mean, you shouldn't just go up and pet people's
Yeah.
dogs without their permission. But
Little kids try to do that with Jet. Just like if I'm walking him
that's
downtown.
not okay.
And for context, Jet is a police dog, or was trained to be a police dog. And I had his little vest on that says "Don't pet" and like service dog and whatever, and the kids were just like, they were like leading with their hand, like, dude, this dog's gonna rip your hand off, like,
Yeah.
don't. So yeah, don't just pet random dogs because they might kill you. Jet could definitely kill you if you wanted to. That dog is scary.
Zeb doesn't like kids that much.
He's like little mite baby.
He finds that I perceive him to find, because they're very like unpredictable,
Mhm.
and he is a little nervous about that.
That's how Smoke is. As soon as like my niece and nephews come in, he hears them. He literally like flattens down and sprints away. Just sprints upstairs. He's like, "Yeah, we're not doing that today."
So
Let's.
I think we should call this episode "How to Make Friends"
Yes. How to make.
and how to figure out if your friends are real.
real. Call them at 3 a.m. and be like, I have a flat tire. Can you come get me? If the answer is no, you block their number.
Oh,
if the
I have
answer
a
is
story.
yes,
I have a good story.
go for it.
Okay, so we can kind of wrap up with this. When I was in grad school, I lived alone, and I woke up one morning so like dizzy and drenched in sweat as if I had just taught a cycling class. Like I was very sick. I got up, I was too dizzy to walk, so I just like fell back on my bed. And this was probably 8 a.m. on a Saturday, so I called everybody in my grad program, and nobody answered. And then a little while later, my friend Josh did call me back, and I was just like, hey, can you just come over just to make sure that I don't die? Or if I do die, you can take me to the doctor.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And he did. And then later on, Tiffin, the one who just sat in my office and became my friend, he called me back when he woke up. But nobody else even called me back. I left messages like, hey, I'm dying. Call me back. And so those two guys were the only ones. And I was like, I knew then. Who was
I see
real.
where I stand.
Yeah, for sure.
Jeez.
But I needed a friend in that moment, for real, and I had to.
Only two.
But at least I had to. That's pretty good.
This-
Better than none.
This
For
is
sure.
very true.
Mhm. Yeah.
So nothing left you said?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that was all for today. Today's episode is how to make friends and keep them /
Are they real?
vet them.
Next time we'll talk about
Why you should exercise.
why you should exercise.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. As always, follow us on Spotify, like us on Facebook, and share our SoundCloud. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.